Hello, welcome once again to Frank's Project Pause, where we discuss everything project. We look at the in and out of projects, we educate, we sensitize, and also point you to the right places and the other pointers that can lead to project success. To have this discussion this morning, I have with me an astute and accomplished project professional, and we are going to do justice to that. But before we do that, let me remind you that this session is coming to you live by kind courtesy of Certified Projects Avenue and Cortec Agile Limited. We are also coming to you live from the studios of Eagle Eye Projects and Events at Adenta. Now, like I mentioned earlier, we have with us to do the discussion. I'm going to mention his name and he would help us to get to know him better. Mr. Emmanuel Amankwano. Good morning and welcome to Frank's Project Pause this morning.
Good morning, Frank, and good morning to all your listeners. I'm very delighted to be here this morning to share in this discussion. Well, my name is Emmanuel Amankwano. I'm a very passionate business analyst, a project consultant, and I have a few certifications in the area of project management. I have PMP certification. I have PBA certification, which is for business analysts. I have ACP, which is Agile Certified Practitioner. I have Scrum certification. I have risk management certification. And I have a technical certification in Oracle Cloud Infrastructure as a cloud architect. So these are just a few of the certificates I have currently. And I look forward to getting more in the future.
Interesting. That's quite a mouthful. What motivates you to have all these certifications?
Well, the passion to learn and to gain knowledge is what drives me to doing this. That's the fundamental driver. And because I consult, I need to be able to understand things from different perspectives. Risk, business analysis, that is looking at solutions for problems, for opportunities, looking at the trend. And now we have movement towards agile. So trying to be current, that is what drives this. And I've also realized that I have the gifts of training. So when I get a certification, I move into training as well to impact people. And also to get some revenue as well from that endeavor.
Very well. That's the bottom line anyway. So many have said that when they hear of projects, they liken it to the brick and mortar where you have road construction or building construction. What would you say to such people?
Well, that is living in the Stone Age, right? I'm saying this because currently we have project economy, meaning that everything that we do around is revolving around projects. So whether it's a personal project, it's an organizational project, yes, these are projects. And I have been able to handle projects not in construction, in diverse industries, in the agriculture, in transportation, in the pharmaceutical, in banking and finance, and also in the telecom industry. So you can see that it's not only in construction. I don't even have construction experience.
Very well. It really defeats that assertion that has been held by many. On this note, would you be kind enough to let our viewers know what the basic definition of a project is so we can situate it better in the context?
Okay, so if you Google the term project, you have several definitions, but I'll go with the PMI definition, which says that a project is a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to be able to create a unique product, service, or result. So we have a number of items in there. So we have the nature of temporality. That means that you have a beginning, you have an end. Then you have an endeavor that comes with activities that must be carried out to be able to achieve a result. So we have an end outcome in mind. It could be a product which could be a physical thing like the mobile phone, or it could be a software that is used to provide service to people. So it is not only about something physical, like in the construction where you have a house,
Right.
you have roads. No, not only that. It could also even be a document. We have some who are into research and development, R&D.
Yeah.
What they do is to just go into research and then come up with findings. Now, that is a project.
Yeah, indeed.
So that setup of thinking about an idea to do a research and coming up with your findings in a document is a project.
Well, so in that case, you would agree with me then that project management, as we have known it to be a profession, is no more just a profession, but it has become a skill that every individual would need, irrespective of the industry within which they ply their trade. In this case, would you advise somebody in the, say, military or a nurse or a medical doctor to take the project management course or any of the certifications? Would you advise that?
Yes, I will, and for a number of reasons. We have had even doctors attend some of our trainings. Why? They are leading projects in the medical field. And this project that they lead could be things coming from how to be able to take care of patients better, how to improve organizational processes. So process improvement. And anywhere we have processes, for example, even the military, there are processes for doing things. So how do we even improve as a military organization? What is our tactics? How do we even improve? So coming up with a way to improve how we do things and making sure that that goal is achieved can be only attained through effective project management. So if you are a nurse, if you are a doctor, if you are a military person, and wherever you find yourself, you are involved in some endeavors which bring about an outcome, which could be either a service that is being rendered or a product that is being delivered. Yes, project management is good for you. We are going to look at time management, we are going to look at resource management, we are going to look at risk management, and think about it. All these areas, nursing, medicine, you have risks in there. Yeah. You have the need for resources to be able to achieve whatever goals that are supposed to be met. So it is not only for people who are into IT or into construction. Yeah.
Well, interesting. When we were speaking about the doctors and the projects they lead, it came to mind. What if team of doctors who are undertaking a surgery could also manage each of these sessions as a project? What do you say to that?
Exactly, because they have to plan. They need to know what steps they need to take. So it's a form of project management that they are actually undertaking there. You have an end goal. Remember, we talked about project as a temporary endeavor that is undertaken to be able to achieve a result. The result is that a patient is not dead, but is alive through the process. That is our result. And how happy when we hear that the doctors have gone through a surgical procedure with someone and then it's successful. Yeah. So that requires a lot of planning. The risk management is in there. Yeah. So what if certain things we do lead to excess bleeding? What do we do? So all of these things that have to be thought through require project management skills. So there are so many doctors who are doing project management, they don't even know that they are doing project management.
Right. That's very true. I was once confronted by someone who is working in a registry of a university who wanted to study project management and was asking the correlation between project management and his role as someone who is working as a assistant registrar. recruiting students and, ensuring that the school or the university gets revenue from the school, from the students, and also ensure that they have enough intake to feed their academic system. Would you be able to throw some light on that as someone who may not, as it were, be wasting his time in studying project management? How would project management serve a purpose for such a person?
Okay, so remember that the academic year starts with maybe fresh students. So we have a goal of maybe having an intake of a certain number. And we may have a process in place that we have been using for a number of years. The question is, have we noticed any bottlenecks in the process? If we have, what have we done about those bottlenecks? A project could be started to be able to even review the entire process for getting students into the educational system. So a registrar who is involved in the process of getting students may know the challenges. He can lead a project that helps in improving the recruitment or the intake process. That is one. He may also see every academic intake as a project and then look at how best, because he's not doing the work alone, he has a number of people who help in the process. So how do we gather resources, make sure you are doing budgeting for even the process, because staff will have to be involved in the process. Sometimes they have to do overwork and all that. So how do we plan to make sure that the process is successful? So it's something that can be taken by a registrar as a project to handle. So every year he has a project.
Very, very, very well. I believe he will be listening to us, and you have provided much more insight into what I provided to him earlier on. And it is getting much more interesting. Hello viewers, welcome back, and the discussion continues. It's been interesting so far. We require of you to subscribe, hit the button, like, comment, and then let us also hear from you. Join the conversation and share the link with your colleagues so we can all benefit from the ongoing discussion. We would love to hear from you. So Emmanuel, we have been talking about a lot, and we have established the fact that project management goes beyond construction, and you have actually provided clear, hardcore evidence that all industries require project management, and project management brings many benefits to the individual as well as the organization if we do employ them. How do organizations decide to initiate a project? And as it were, individuals do initiate projects as well, but I would want us to dwell more on organizations. How do they initiate projects? What necessitates projects to be initiated by organizations?
Okay, that's quite interesting a question. It depends. There are a number of things that can bring up the initiation of a project. I would say it's basically ideas that generate projects or give birth to projects. Why am I saying this? So an organization that is into providing services will come up with an idea. We want to provide a service B to a particular kind of clients. Now this idea has to be implemented to be able to get the desired results. So that is one thing. Organizations also have problems It could be operational inefficiency. It could be trying to digitize their operations. So this can be an opportunity for them to be able to start a project, which will help them to nip the problem in the bud, solve the problem. So that is another thing that can trigger a project. And it could also be that their processes have to be improved. So process improvements could lead to projects. Then we have mergers. Some organizations merge to become one. We have a number of pharmaceutical companies that have merged to become one. Telecom companies that merge to become one.
Yeah.
Now, when that merger is decided, it leads to projects. You have to do branding, you have to do, or even acquisition also. When a company changes because of acquisition, like we have ABSA now, right? It changed from Barclays to ABSA. That leads to projects. So you have branding projects, marketing projects, IT projects, a whole lot of other things are giving birth to.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very true. Can we also look at a case where we have government legislations that are requiring that certain organizations come up with certain things? It could be, let's say, for example, buildings becoming disability friendly and other things. Could this also lead to the initiation of projects by organizations?
Absolutely. Just think about e-levy. Some years back, many of the financial institutions did not have e-levy implemented. But then when the government said that I want to take e-levy, so give me that money, all the financial institutions had to implement a project that allows them to be able to collect that e-levy and then give to the government. So government legislation, it could be an institution like the Bank of Ghana, or it could even be NCA, right, National Communication Authority, coming up with a legislation which has been approved, and then it's binding for all the players in the industry to follow, and then they have to start projects to accomplish that.
That's very true. Yeah. Then we have also seen situations where, out of competition, the market is demanding that you live up to certain expectations, and in order for you not to lose out on the competition, you may have to initiate some projects in order to stay competitive.
That's very true. Yeah. Very true. And also, sometimes, like you mentioned, the market, it can change. When COVID hit, many alcoholic beverage manufacturing companies decided to change, right? They decided to veer into producing hand sanitizers.
Right.
They didn't have that in mind maybe as a plan, but because of the need in the market, they changed to that. That's a project that they started. So the market dynamics can also force organizations to embark on projects.
Great. Yeah. That reminds me of PMI, Project Management Institute's definition for the project economy, which says that the way by which ideas are turned to reality.
Yes.
So whatever we see around us today were once ideas in other people's heads.
Yeah.
So it was only through projects that these ideas were turned into reality.
Yes.
Now, we have frameworks, methodologies when it comes to the management of projects. And our good old friend, Waterfall, has been around with us for a long time. Even though many organizations are going agile as well as hybrid. A lot of the time, it is easier to have the Waterfall as a template than you could build on it. So looking at the process groups from the PMI, from the PMBOK, as well as the knowledge areas, we have the processes, how they interplay, and how we are able to situate our projects in a better perspective, and also be able to bring everyone on board and have the final outcome in mind, in our mind's eye. So we work towards achieving them. Organizations set objectives for each of their projects. And before they do that, during the initiating phase, what are some of the things that go on there in order to have a better foundation for the project?
Okay, so every organization is different, but we have, like we mentioned, basic or templates that we can use for this. So during the initiation phase of a project, the idea that we mentioned earlier is actually evaluated. We look at what is the return on investment of this idea. Then we try to look at high-level requirements. Because we need to get approval for the idea that we have and its feasibility to bring about the expected outcomes. Okay. So during that phase, you have to do a little bit of engagement with the stakeholders to understand the idea, because the idea could be a problem that we need to solve or an opportunity out there that we need to take advantage of. And we need to know in a particular way, how much are we going to put into this idea to make it a reality, as well as what do we anticipate to get out of this idea that is turned into reality. Because once you put something in, you likely, especially for profit-making organizations, they are looking at what their returns. So that justification has to be made very clear at that stage. We have a document usually is produced that is called a project charter. Now, this project charter is the document that articulates all of this that we have just mentioned. So, for example, the high-level scope. What are we doing? Okay. Why are we doing it? So those questions have to be answered. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Who is going to do it? When is it going to be done? So these are some of the questions that we need to ask ourselves. And then the how is also very important. If you have an idea, how do you get it to reality, like you mentioned, to be able to bring about something that is of benefit to the organization and its stakeholders. So these are just a few of the things that will be done during the initiation stage. Right. And somebody has to approve that document. A sponsor has to approve it.
Wait. So from what you are saying, it means that it is not all ideas that are mooted that are able to see the light of day based on the business case documentation, among others. If the return on investments, among other criteria, are not convincing enough, it means that they can be shut down even from its inception.
Exactly. That's very true, because organizations want to make sure that whatever they are investing brings value. So if, ideas can come in many forms. And in an organization, for example, you will have different departments with different needs. Not even just needs. Some are wants. And some of the wants, the organization may not be able to fund those wants. So they will look at assessing all those ideas to be sure which one of them is feasible in terms of their finance, even the timing as well. Do they have enough time to be able to implement? Do we have the resources? Sometimes you want to look at all of this before an idea is actually selected for project. So it's true. Some ideas are short because it could be we don't have enough money, or we are not seeing the benefits that this idea is going to bring to a larger group. Maybe it's going to benefit only a small group of people, but not the entire organization. So why do we have to embark on such an endeavor? So these are some of the reasons. But of course, some of the benefits are not quantitative. They may be qualitative in the sense that you cannot put some specific amount of money to it. If you are improving people's well-being, like you mentioned about a disability, you are making an environment friendly for people who are disabled. What benefit is it going to bring you? But remember, it is making people realize that the organization thinks about people. So that's branding. So you improve your brand image, which is intangible.
Your reputation.
Your reputation,
well.
yes. So these are some of the things that will be considered, not only the figures, the amounts.
Right. You are so right. When you listen to advertisement from some organizations, They sometimes, fuse in some of these things to let you know that we do these things.
Exactly.
We value such and such things from people. And they use that to as a competitive edge over their competitors. Now, you've brought us to a point where we are looking at resources. Resources are infinite. I mean, nobody has resources sitting down idle and, in excess. So organizations are usually faced with situations where they have competing needs. In such a situation, what are some of the criteria that the organization may consider in selecting priority projects over the others?
Okay, so the competing needs could be one. It could even be, like you mentioned, the resources. We may not have enough skilled personnel in the organization to be able to run all the projects. So we have 7 projects, but then with the departments we cannot take all of them on the 7 projects at the same time. So then we have to prioritize which of these projects we should do first, maybe this quarter or this fiscal year, and then shelve the other ones or put them for next year or the next coming years. So competing needs with regards to resources can drive this kind of agenda. Then we also look at the risks involved. So if we realize that this is very risky and the returns are very high, but the failure rate is also very high, we may not want to take such a course, especially for organizations that are risk averse, right? They wouldn't want to go into such a project. They would want one that's easier and risk-friendly, so to speak, so that they can be able to embark on them.
Okay.
Then also we look at time. Maybe a project that we would have to deliver a particular product is time-bound. For example, we have products for occasions like Christmas, Easter, and the rest. So if we realize that we cannot meet that timeline, we will not even want to start a project like that. Because at the end of the day, if the season passes, then what happens?
Yeah. Would have lost the resources
Exactly.
we pumped into it.
Exactly. So these are some of the things. So the risk involved, the resources required, the time involved, the cost. So all of these are things that have to be weighed carefully.
Very well. And you did mention something that is very key, the risk appetite of the organization involved.
Yes.
In spite of all the cautious statements you have made, some organizations have very high or large risk appetite.
Yeah.
They will damn the consequences and go in for such projects, irrespective of the risk that come with it. Now, having been able to select priority projects, we are in the initiation phase. There's this thing that usually confuses people, initiation and then initiating. Now, it is better we situate it in this way so viewers can also share their comments with us as we discuss it. When it comes to looking at project life cycle or phases, that's where we usually have the TION, initiation, and then execution. Those are the words that usually change. But when it comes to the rest, planning remains planning. But when it comes to the process groups, they are doing words, so they come with ing. So you would have, instead of initiation, you have initiating. Yeah. Then execution, you have executing. Yeah. But the rest will remain. And then closing, instead of closure, you have closing. Yeah. So when we are talking about process groups, you'll be hearing the initiating instead of initiation. Then when you are talking about the phases, you'll be hearing the initiation and the execution and others. Now, we are looking at initiating as a process group within the process group of the PMI framework. You mentioned project charter as one of the processes that we do have during the initiating process group. You also have the stakeholder identification, which, as it were, should happen as early as possible during the life of the project. Yeah. We have seen several challenges on projects, and you would trace the root cause to failure to do proper stakeholder identification or a faulty stakeholder identification regime. Why is it so important that right after the project charter, among the benefits of the project charter that you mentioned earlier on, you also have the fact that it authorizes the project manager, or it gives the authority to the project manager to be able to apply funds to the project. Why is it so important that you have stakeholder identification coming second among the 49 processes only after the signing of project charter? Why is it so important?
Okay, so I think even stakeholder identification is something that you do throughout the course of the project.
Exactly.
Because you need to know who the sponsor is. It's a key stakeholder. And we develop solutions or we embark on projects to serve people or to provide a need. So who are the beneficiaries? They are very important, right? Just imagine a road construction in your neighborhood. The people in the neighborhood are part of your stakeholders. So we need to know who the beneficiaries are, who is going to do the work itself, because that person is also a stakeholder. Yeah. Who is going to provide the funds? So the sponsor is our stakeholder. Who is going to ensure that the work of the project is done? Who is going to test it after that? So we want to think about all these people, because think about it. The ideas are coming from people. The requirements are coming from people. So if we don't know these people and what the actual problem is or what it is that we are doing, don't you think we will make a lot of assumptions?
That's true.
And when you make a lot of assumptions and you are not able to validate it, it ends up in producing something that is not beneficial for anybody. It becomes a white elephant. So stakeholder engagement is very key so that we are able to understand the problem that we are solving or the opportunity very well. So at the end of the day, everybody knows that that's what we expected and that is what. So if we don't engage the stakeholders, the requirements will not come or we will get half-baked requirements, which will lead to a half-baked solution that does not solve any problem.
Interesting. During the identification of stakeholders, what are some of the scientifically proven methods, processes, activities, artifacts, tools, techniques that can be helpful so that we would be able to holistically identify stakeholders and have a successful project?
That's quite interesting, Frank. So I'll talk from my experience. Yeah. It is not possible for me to know everybody involved in the project. So what I do, the people that are around, it could be the sponsor, it could be a few people that have been identified as team members, engage in interviews, talk to them. So interviewing is one of the key techniques that can be used to identify. So I come to Frank. So we are going to construct the road in this area. Which people in this area are we supposed to be able to engage? So there's a king somewhere here. There's a Ebusiapeni or some
head
kind
of the family, head of the clan.
So where are they? Can we meet them? Can you arrange for us to? So we need to. So interviewing, I like that a lot. So once I interview the people, I get to know who are going to be involved in the process. So interviewing is one. Now, another thing we can also do is to read documentation about the project. Because every project comes with some document. It could be that it was a proposal that was submitted, and a request for proposal, and a contractor actually bid for or sent in a proposal. So you can know from those project documents, or prior to the project, the documents that exist, you can go and analyze those documents. Then you know. So this construction project is being done by Consa, is being done by Guaro Galvani, or whatever it is. Those people or that company becomes part of your stakeholders. So you can read a bit about that company, how they work, because they may be coming with people with different culture. So having to be able to learn a bit about them gives you the leverage to be able to engage